Hi, it's Nancy welcoming you to Garden Scroll.
Remember when I told you if my flowering maple abutilon red tiger bloomed, I would show you? Isn't it beautiful? Just like a little partially opened parachute, and it hangs down. Such pretty color. Look at this beautiful mum. My friend Charlotte got this for me years ago, and I've kept it going in the garden. I clipped the irises back again. I hope not too early again. If I did it too early this time, I'll just wait till spring. Things are not nearly as pretty in the garden as they were before. My husband and his twin brother fixed our guttering. Doesn't it look nice? It's so much straighter. It was practically falling off, and when the wind blew it would rattle. But my husband's brother fixed up a wonderful scaffolding. I might see if I can put a picture in here to show you how he fixed it, where they could get up to work on the guttering, and it didn't even mess up my pots hardly at all. They did move a few just to get it set up in there so they could work on it. But you can definitely tell from the colors and from the things that have disappeared from the garden that fall is here. We're in the throes of fall now because it's totally ushering in the cold nights, and tomorrow is supposed to be a cold day even. And these little ones are lined up waiting to be painted. Once they get their paint on them, they'll look good again. I actually clipped irises back for 2 days, the biggest part of 2 days. So I've got them, I think all of them. If I don't, they'll probably will have to wait for spring. But I definitely hope I did get the biggest portion of them, and I think I did, and I hope they don't have time to grow back. But I think things have stopped growing very much. They may still be growing some, but I notice we're not really going to have to mow the lawn this week, so we may not have to mow it again actually until next spring. More of the chrysanthemums are blooming too. Look at this gorgeous color. This one is just beginning to fill out good. And our little stash of brick is actually dwindling down. My husband and his brother widened my path for me, so this is going to be great. Can walk down it easily now. This little iris bed also got cleaned out. So it looks pretty bare right now, but it'll look really good next spring. It'll look better than it did, hopefully, because some of them got thinned a bit, and they all just got trimmed back, and they're ready to go through the winter, and then hopefully be back pretty in the spring. Now, if I have to come out here and show you that these grew back also before the cold weather got here, and I have to redo them in the spring, I'm going to be very sad. Maybe even a little bit mad, but of course I just have myself to be mad at. This little wren, this one didn't have a tail, so I fixed him one, but I need to paint his little tail too, and then it's going to look fine. I clipped the seed heads off of my castor beans so they won't be just coming up everywhere, and I saved them because I will want to put at least one, maybe two, back in the garden next year, but I don't really want more than that because they can get out of hand quickly if you happen to accidentally let them go to seed and let them just put them everywhere. That's not a good idea. This pretty marigold is waning down too, and soon it will just be dried and ready to save seeds from it, which I surely will because it's just been so pretty. Also pulled up most of my celosia. I can tell this one is one that fell off, and I'll take it in, but I know that it's probably already put down more seeds than I want. I'll probably want to take a bunch of those out in the spring, but I definitely want to leave some of it. I think the celosia, the plume, and the coxcomb both are very pretty. And I did save some of the celosia seeds too, just in case they didn't come up where I wanted them. And as you can see, most all of the coleus are gone. There's little scraggling bits of them here and there, and some of them did do better than others through the cold, but most of them are gone. This pretty red salvia blooms late in the season, and it's good for migrating hummingbirds. It's what I've read, and I'm sure it is. They come by and have a little nip on their way wherever they're going for the winter. And I cut off my cattail seed heads because they will dry and sprinkle seeds all over, and I don't want that either. But I do love to see the cattails. And I put this little tiered pot back out in the garden, although I just put the stuff that was in it back in that one, and I don't even remember what happened to this. I think I lost all of it and lost the liner, and then I just put the plants in other pots that I had emptied, taking things inside. And I know it looks worse here, but I think the plants will basically cover all that. And if it just stands up, which right now it is, and it's got 2 of them on there, it stood up when I first got it and looked great, but as soon as I began putting plants in it, it just began to fall totally down. So I had to put brick under the bottom ones, and then I had to put little stakes inside between each one to hold it up, and it was still wobbly. So hopefully this will really give it a sturdiness and a stability so that next summer I can just plant in it and hopefully it will stay and look nice. And right over here is another iris bed I cleaned out, so I didn't realize I had so much iris until I started cleaning it out. So it'll all be totally brown before very long now, but it's still pretty and it's still pleasant to walk out here. The weather is still nice. At least today it's very nice, even though it is supposed to be cold tomorrow. But and I'm going to come out and I got a few little seeds from this celosia here, but I want to get more of it. Isn't that pretty? And I discovered, well, actually I noticed last year that these 2 colors look so good together, and I'm going to try to fix a pot where those 2 colors can play off each other next year if I can remember to. Some of the mums are beginning to fade, and others are just now beginning to open and look good. So mostly everything that still remains to be done to winterize the garden is to cover some of this with plastic and to take care of my faucets and my hoses for the winter. And I don't know where the bumblebees go for the winter, but I have noticed they've been slowing down some. I've seen a few of them in the garden still, but sometimes even the ones I see seem like they're asleep or sluggish. So this is a good time to be gathering in seeds also. Look, there's a little dianthus blooming for me. And I've got several of the seeds of like the zinnies and the celosia, things that are kind of dying out and drying up, and then leaving that seed for me for next year. This is a pretty little mum here. It's just beginning to open. I better get this little pot one more time. You can't believe it stayed this fresh this long, but I know it can't last forever. From far away you can still see that there's a garden there, but when you go to get a close-up you see a lot more stuff that's dead or brown than you do that's beautiful. Like this little mum right here is gorgeous, but if you go on up, all the coleus that was in this pot is gone, or practically gone. Although I did notice I had some clematis blooming, and I noticed the clematis on this, if I can get it where you can see it, is also blooming. This looks gorgeous in the spring. The White Susan vine flowers are looking good. And there's another clematis blooming, or clematis blooming right here. Look at these pretty little dime-sized zinnies. They're called red spider. And there's a pretty mum, which is just now beginning to grow up, so it won't make much of a showing this year, but hopefully before long it'll fill that whole little area out. A few of my little seeds actually did come up that I planted in my seed boxes. These are just volunteer ones from the Bells of Ireland, and they won't live through the winter. But I'm hoping there'll be some other little seeds that didn't come up yet that will come up in the spring and will live for me. And then I did have some other things coming up. I'm not sure what some of this is. This of course is that perennial alyssum, and it's gorgeous. And these are little tiny cabbages that I planted that are coming up. They may make it through the winter, but I'm not sure about that at all. I think I'll probably really have to just redo everything. All these little seeds probably won't, or seedlings probably will not make it. But I'll try again in the early spring and plant this full of the things that I had originally tried to plant here, which was poppies, coneflowers, and all in various shades and just some really pretty colors that I do hope to get going here. And then I did put some creeping Jenny on the ground that we put in to try to stabilize our little seed box so that it totally fell off, or just right at it. It didn't fall completely off, but it was not safe at all. But my husband's got that back up and got dirt around it where I think it will stay, although we definitely do need to put enough stuff around it. And I think this creeping Jenny will work if it puts its root down and then takes off and goes next spring and fills that area out. I think it will keep it from eroding. And I put several little starts of this pretty pink salvia. It's a perennial and it should come back, and hopefully it'll even come back in this pot. But I also put a few little pieces here and there in the garden, and since we had such an early cold spell, I don't know if it had time to put its roots down, so I may have to try this again next spring also. But hopefully it did go ahead and put its root down. And I want to cover this little pot a bit so it'll kind of protect some of those succulents in there. I love this little pot. A pot of succulents is so pretty. All those different shades and textures just flowing and mingling together are so pretty. And I love this variegated succulent here. That's so pretty to me also. So hopefully these will come back. They are perennials, but in that little shallow pot, I don't think they would make it without some protection. One more time to look at this pretty plectranthus in bloom. Those pretty little purple blooms in that dark green color with this light green coleus. Isn't that pretty? So even though we might have to search through all the dead and brown stuff to find it, there's a lot of beauty still in the garden. And I certainly hope I got one of these little coleus, because they won't be here long. I can't believe they made it this long. You can tell here's one beside it that didn't. It's just barely hanging on at all. They don't like the cold. The coleus don't. I can't really blame them. And there's a couple of little impatiens blooms. This is one of my favorite colors. This is another place where I clip back iris again, because I did clip back this one that first time too, and it needed it again. So I've got to remember not to start too early on trimming the iris, because it just doesn't do any good. You have to do it again anyway. But I've got a lot of things marked off my garden to-do list. And I have not yet got to just sit down and just dream about next year's garden and look around and see where I have empty spots or where I have things I would like to change, and write that down. And so I actually put that on my list, but it's not marked off yet. I still haven't got that done. And these little seed heads must not be ripe yet, because the birds haven't been coming to them. But when they get ripe, the birds will all be coming and getting the seed. I did trim back my hibiscus, that pink Texas star hibiscus that was here, and I set this pretty chrysanthemum that's blooming nicely right now, and I set it here. When you can catch the sun shining just right on the grasses, they look beautiful in the fall too. So I'm even more convinced that it's our hot Oklahoma summers that do not allow my little calabachoa to do well, because look at this. After it got cool, this little bit that was hanging on has just jumped right out there and is just looking so great. The little bit that was left. So I'm not sure if I can ever do calabachoa in Oklahoma, but I will try. I may just get it to last through June. But I must say, this is so pretty. I wish I could have just big billows of it flowing out of mini pots. And not that this is flowering, but look at the greenery part of it. That's calabachoa also. And it's looking really good and healthy right now. And this is after a really hard, well, not a hard freeze. Actually, it just went down into the 40s. But it can handle the cold much better, evidently, than it can handle the heat. This beautiful purple alyssum is really shining today. I heard geese going over a few days ago, and I tried to get some of those for you, but they were too far away. I couldn't get the sound they make on here, but if I get a chance, I'll put some of that on here too. I love to hear them. Reminds me of my dad, because he would always say, "Sister, listen," and point them out to me. This morning, because my husband was helping his brother, or rather his brother was helping us to do some home repairs, so I had breakfast by myself, and I was drinking my coffee, and I had ghosts with my coffee this morning, but I loved it because they were ghosts of my dad and my brother. While I was having my coffee, I thought of my dad when I was still at home, a teenager, or maybe even in my 20s. I left home when I was 17, so I probably was still a teenager, but I remember him looking over from his coffee while he was stirring it and putting cream in it and saying, "Sister, Daddy can't get his coffee just right this morning." So lots of times when I have my coffee, I get to hear that again. Isn't it wonderful how God gives us some little memories that we get to hold on to? And then the other one was my brother, because I had gone to see him one day, and I just went in. I actually knocked on the back door and nobody heard it, so I just went in, and he looked up from a cup of coffee, and he actually had the shirt on that his wife made a pillow out of for me, so it's just a wonderful memory. But he looked up from his coffee and said, "Well, sis, I didn't know you were going to be here today." So now the garden is just going to be memories, and we'll just have ghost memories of these pretty little flowers left before long, but we'll be able to look back on them whenever we want to. And I have several things in mind for later on that I would like to put what worked and what didn't, and plans for next year's garden and what I learned from this year's garden. So there'll be lots more. So please continue to watch the garden scrolls and come along with me on our scroll together, and like and subscribe. Thank you.